Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Indy Investor Pod. I am excited about this guest that we have on here today. Number one, he's just an awesome guy. Like I just enjoy. I'm excited just to have a half-hour conversation with him and stuff because we're usually both so busy that we can't just jump on and have a conversation or anything. So I'm excited to talk to Mr. Vance Courtney here with me today, and he's got kind of an interesting story, and we'll get into his stuff and things. But Vance, how you doing, brother?
Dude, I'm doing great, man. Thank you so much for having me on. Just like you said, it was almost a great opportunity of like just being able to chat with you and sync up with some kind of focus and intent. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for having me on this. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Yeah. Thanks for joining me. And I wanted to have and Vance. So Vance, he does real estate investing down in Augusta, Georgia. So yes, this is the Indie Investor Pod, and it's something completely different. But I wanted Vance to be on here because he has such an interesting story, and I think a lot of us can learn from it. I know I've learned from him, and he's learned from me too. We've been able to help each other out. It's been really cool. But so Vance basically went from he was working his W-2, just kind of, plugging along, making some pretty good money, had a good job and everything like that, and started doing some real estate. And all of a sudden he's like, man, I don't know if I want to do this anymore. So kind of going through that phase of like working out of your W-2, getting into full-time investing. And then he's actually positioned himself to where like he's kind of sitting in that owner's box, that CEO role, and really letting his team run his operations and run his real estate investing business so he can do some other things on the side. So you went from kind of within basically 3 years, went from getting out of your W-2 to almost getting out of your real estate investing job too and helping other people and things. So
Yeah.
let's Vance, let's start with that first. So, because I know a lot of investors are in that kind of mode of where they're like, man, I'm in my W-2, like I'm thinking about real estate, like during my lunch break, probably during my job when I should actually be working and things like that. How did you kind of make that decision of like, when did you know it was right to get out of that W-2 and into like, hey, I'm going to do full-time investing?
Oh man. So when did I know it was right to get out of W-2 and then go full time into investing was when the revenue exceeded my job,
Yeah.
right? And I was full time in both. I found myself, and I was really tracking about 100 hours a week being going to it, with more in the business in there. And when I realized that from an hourly rate, it just didn't make sense. So when I started exceeding my time, because I'm still trading time for money, exceeded the time for money in this other position, was like, it was a no-brainer at that time. And I probably should have done it probably a year earlier. But again, being risk adverse and all that, that's an easy problem to run into.
Yeah. So what was it about that? Like kind of where I think I saw you put a post out like maybe about a month ago, and there's like one picture of you like you had like 4 screens in front of you, like working in your job, and like you like happy in real estate and things like that. And I know, like you just said too, is like you were risk adverse. You wanted to make sure you had the money to cover everything else. And like, I guess, what advice do you have for somebody that's in that mode of where they're going back and forth of like, oh man, I know I can make more if I took the jump, or like, do I just go ahead and wait until I have like everything in place? And like you said, you were burning the candle at both ends, like working 2 different jobs and things. So what's some advice you have for somebody kind of in that mindset, in that space?
Yeah, so I feel like you have 2 extremes. You have the one who's like, I'm going to burn the bridges, go all in, but you haven't even dabbled in it yet, right?
Yeah.
Like my first advice is you got to start the dabbling and almost to the level that you're putting the same effort at work, right? So if you're working 40 hours, everybody has an extra 40 hours, believe it or not, to go do the next thing, right? Yeah. So go start there and see if you even like it. Matter of fact, I got a guy that I'm helping out right now who tried the wholesaling, wasn't for him, and now he's going to try and do property inspector. But while he still had the W-2, because it's like, don't just quit and go all in, right? Because if you don't like it, there's the going back is hard, right? And you don't want to prove everybody right and wrong. So that's one extreme. And then the other one's like overly cautious, where the numbers even make sense. So when you're at the beginning, I like to put in what I call like the dip. I don't know if you've ever heard of that book, but like I have a plan of like what I call success and what I call my exit. So my first year in 2019, when I did this, just as a side thing, it was like, all right, I got to make $1 in pure profit. Like after all expenses, if I make $1 in profit, then I'll at least try next year. If I didn't even make $1 in profit, I'm out. If I lost money, I'm out. And then I had a goal of what I was shooting for was like, okay, it'd be really cool and so I was intentional, not only succeeding, but 50,000 of like success. And we did well over that 50,000. So it was very successful, but I still risk averse, was like, oh, 2020, who knows? That was a fluke, doubt. I was like, no way, this isn't, discouragement, all these, the 3Ds they always talk about. And I'm like, no, this isn't it. So yeah, that's kind of what I believe in, is like put in the exit strategy and what you call success.
Nice. I love that. So
yeah.
No, that's great. I love how you put, and we'll get into this too, because you're such a systems guy, process guy. You already said even in risk adverse and stuff like that, but putting those those kind of metrics out there and those goals out there of like, hey, I have this year to focus on this. I need to make $1 profit. If I can't, then it's not, it's not worth it for me. If I do, then I'm going to go after this and things. So I love putting those benchmarks out there and then and going after that and things, which is awesome. So let's talk about when you made that transition going from, okay, you quit your W-2 and now you're in, real estate full time and things like that. What's some advice that you have for people that are kind of in that mode where it's like, probably going from that little bit of a mind space of like, oh man, like, okay, I had this security. Now I don't, like, now I'm into this and I need to put, need to get going, even though you're probably loving it. You can put your heart and soul into it, but it's just like, oh man, now I need to make the dollars work too. It has to work.
Oh man. So I want to talk about job security. So just for context, I used to work for the government and I had a clearance. So like after a year of not using it, my clearance kind of goes away, and like talk about true security. But I want to let you know about what job security is. Those skills that you've acquired over time they don't just go away in a year. So you really always have those skills to go back to. Job security is just like, it's the false, what I usually call the golden handcuffs. They're arbitrary, that you can always put them back on. You can't take away the skills you've already learned, right? That's the big part to take away from that. So when you made that transition, keep in mind that, like, sure, it may not be with that company because you burnt the bridge but your skills is still invaluable, right? And again, we won the lottery ticket being born in America. You could just go move somewhere else to go get that golden job again if you did so well, right? And so that's how I kind of like look at it, is it's the job security is already secure because of the skills that I've acquired to get to that point. They don't go away. Your experience is there.
Yeah, that's a great way to put that. And that's one of the things I love about you too, Vance. You're such a positive person. You like, that's so great. I got to ask you though, when you made that transition of like, okay, so you work for a government, you had a pretty good job. Like, did you get any like flack from your family or from friends of like, man, what are you doing? Wow, how can you leave this job and like you got there on your own? And because I think that's a lot of entrepreneurs kind of go through that of just like, it is a leap, it is a jump and things, but then, it's like, how people give them or scrutinize people for that. Of like, how can you give this up and go do this? And is it just having faith in yourself or what, what is it?
All right. So it's the classic, it's the average of the 5. So let me put it this way. You left, or you've gained some experience in your business and you got some information, some results from some source, right? I don't care if it was a coach, a mentor, a program, a group of people. Those are the people that I would want to chat to about taking the jump. So if I was doing this again and say, Brian, I ran into you and I'm chatting, I'm learning with you, right? I'm local to Indy. I'd be talking to you about quitting my job and not the people that are in my job about quitting. I let them know as I'm quitting, not ahead of time, right? Yeah. Because people will hold you into the group that you're in. So if you want to go somewhere, consult in that group, that's going to help you get in that group. If you talk to the other group that wants to hold you there, they're going to tell you the reason why you should stay where it's at for fear, and this growth. While somebody, if you talk to Brian, is like, dude, it's a no-brainer. Like, don't, stop, don't be a teacher, come over this way, right? Like, this is the group. He's in this group now, right? Like, he's going to pull it. But I'm just using it as an example of get the advice and talk to the people of where you want to be, not where you're at and where you've been.
Yeah, that's a really good tip right there. And I think a lot of people, they listen to the people that are around them and that are in their circle, but that's not necessarily that the people that are doing what they want to be doing. And make sure you have that other circle too, and get into and listen to those people that you want to be doing. Find those people and seek them out, and they can give you some advice. I literally just talked to a buddy of mine. They have a really great business out of Chicago, and they're thinking about bringing on a teacher into like doing the operations role and stuff like that. So I got to have this conversation with this teacher the other day of like, yeah, man, this is exactly what I went through. Here's what it is. Here's the transferable skills that you're going to bring over, all those things. And it was a really cool conversation to have and stuff. So I'll put a plug-in out there too. If people are looking for good employees, hire some teachers. That's what I like to say.
Well, like that's about to jump the gun, but that's like our next thing that we're looking at, right? Is like teachers 100%, right? And the kicker though is your experience, somebody else can relate to. So I can talk to people that are in tech, very analytical, very like, oh, this is like, risk adverse by analyzing it, and I can apply and communicate with them on this side. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're able to communicate with teachers. And if you're on this other side, and you're hearing this, pull some other people up from where you were, bring them with you for the ride, man.
Oh, so yeah, for sure. 100%. So I love it. That's awesome. Let's talk a little bit about some of these growing pains that maybe you went through and stuff like that. And I feel like a lot of times and And we'll Vance with you. We'll get into like this, all the systems and stuff. He's just a systems person, process person. That's what he's doing some coaching and consulting with right now, and really getting. I know he's even just listening to him like give some speeches and things like that. He's motivated me to like, oh man, I need to be on top of this and things. So I know you have your systems and stuff dialed in. So let's talk about. I know some of the growing pains you went through, just finding the right people and bringing the right people onto the team and stuff. And I know, if you're just starting off, maybe it's just you're bringing on like your first hire, or you're bringing on a VA, you're bringing on third parties for like bookkeeping or, tech stuff or whatever, or finances, whatever it is. Like, what are some of those maybe growing pains that you went through and some advice you have when people are bringing on other people to their team?
Gotcha. So it's a two-step thing here, right? So there's the point of like making a decision of bringing them on, and there's that fear factor of like, can I bring them on? So a couple of things that I've seen people is, but I don't have a year's salary lined up for them, right? To bring them on. So they got that concern and fear. I haven't built all my systems and I don't have everything in place to train them, or they're not going to be as good as me, right?
Yep.
Like I can do it better. So to address these three things, right? These are the big three that I like to look at. The first one is you don't need to have a full year's salary. I actually like to plan for just the next 90 days, because after 90 days, and after you get them trained up and they're ready to go, they actually produce. It's an investment, not a cost, right?
Yep.
And it's the fastest ROI that you can get against anything. I don't care if it's an asset, a challenge on that one. That'd be a fun conversation later. But invest into the people, because they're going to help build a business, right? And then the other one of like, I need all my systems and everything in play. Just enough is all you need. Just enough to get them going, because they're going to do better at figuring out what's really not working, because you have it all in your head, right? And they're going to improve it and make it better. I got people that are better at this. Believe it or not, I'm a systems person, but they're doing it and they're taking true ownership of it, because I'm so spread thin everywhere that I actually suck at a lot of things, right? Yep. And the third thing, if they're not going to be as good as me, I love this thing is like, I'll take 80% quality of somebody else doing it than 1% of me even doing it, right? Because enough of that stacked is the wins that you're looking for. There is no perfect plan. I talk to every business owner. I challenge you to find the one business owner, any one of them that says, oh man, yeah, my business is perfectly running smooth, there's no issues. That's the one that's on the decline and dying and they don't know it.
Yep, exactly. No, that's so true. And that happens. We see people like that. We talk to people like that. Like it's out there and things. So
yeah.
I want to hit on a couple things you put out there. You put out some really good points, and just a couple things with that. I love that you threw out the 80%. That's what I always think. A couple things with that 80% is we all know like the 80-20 rule and things like that, but I just relate it to like 80%. So how do I know when I'm ready to bring somebody on? Is basically when I'm at like 80% capacity. Now, more than likely when you're an entrepreneur, solopreneur, you're like 120%, or whatever. And so a lot of times if you're at that point, it's probably too late. You missed the boat on when to hire, because now you don't have any time to train that person up and get them onboarded and stuff correctly and stuff. So I always look at like, man, when you get to that past that 80% and you're into that 100% capacity, like you're overrun and stuff like that. Like you should have hired before. And it's, go ahead and bring somebody on and go ahead and kind of bite that bullet and go with it too. So, and kind of my role, kind of come back to this 80% as well, I like to say is when I get to basically, if I can bring somebody on and train them up to be 80% of who I am, that's what I need. That's all I need. More than likely, if I hire the right person and I train them and continue training them, hopefully they're going to be better than me. So I say like within the first 3 months, I want them to be 80% of me. And then if they can get, hopefully after that, they can get better than me. And that's what I'm always looking for and stuff. So.
No, I completely agree with that. Like, you nailed it. Like I've even taken the 80-20 principle. So I've kind of was asked that, like, what do I do now or whatnot? And it's like, I use it's the 80-20 and then of the 80-20 of the 80-20, not to go too deep, but what that equates to numbers wise is where can I do like spend 1% of my time to get 50% of the results, right? That's like the big focus of like 1% to get the 50% of the results. So it does stack and layer like that. So I love the 80-20 principle.
Yeah,
right.
100% too. So I also want to go back to that. You mentioned this. I think this is great too, of like, hey, don't wait till your systems and your processes are all in place and things. Number one, they should never be all like in play. Like they should always be changing. They should always be improving and stuff like that. They're never going to be good enough and things. But also, if you're waiting to change or get your systems ready or your processes ready to bring somebody on, like more than likely, I'd rather bring that person on and let them help you create those systems. Let them help you create those processes. That way you get, you have a second mind thinking about it, but then you also they're the person that's going to be involved in it. So let them help you create those and build those up. Granted, a lot of it's going to come from you, but they need to be a piece of that too. What's your thoughts on that, Vance?
No, I 100% agree. I actually have a really funny thing here. I actually have an SOP on how to create SOPs. So an SOP is a standard operating procedure. It's like how to do something. Well, I got a document tell somebody how to create the document on how to do something. A little bit of an inception there, but it helps. Like that's the start of a system. Like create. And here's a tip. Some people are like, but I need to have it. When is enough? Here's where I'll start off with. If you have like starting off with 5 things that you can hand off, to start off for me, one of the first hires for almost anybody should be a virtual or executive assistant of some sort, right? You're just solo right now and you're running a business. They're already going to save you time. Find 5 things you can get off, create a procedure on how to accomplish that, and then create one last one on how did you make that procedure? Because then they can clone and go replicate that when you start giving them new tasks. And then they can create the procedures and centralize it and document it. I don't care how you do it. We can talk on the details of that, but 5 ways from some form, Word document, video, it doesn't matter. And document how you got that, right? And that's it. As simple as I start. Keep simple systems very simple.
Yeah. And I know one of the questions I usually get is like, hey, how do I figure out what those 5 things are? Those first 5 hires, any of that stuff. I'm like, first, it's got to be for you. Like what Vance's first hire, the first 5 things Vance takes off his plate is gonna be different than what I have, because our minds work differently and stuff like that. So it always comes down to always look at like, what are the things that you don't like doing and what are the things are you not good at? Those are the things that you need to get off your plate first. So kind of a third little bucket too is what takes up the most time. That's another bucket I had to throw in there as well. But.
No, I agree with that. So when you talk about taking the most time, this is actually one of the first steps I do when I do some consulting is and I recommend you do this. You want to really gain productivity for 3 days, do a 3-day time study on yourself. And if you're one of those action takers, start tomorrow, first thing in the morning. From the morning to the evening, you track every 15 minutes what you did, just a quick high level on a notepad, and you put it to a spreadsheet for 3 days. When you look at those 3 days, one, you're going to be more productive because you're not going to want to document that I sat there and did Netflix for 2 hours or Facebook for an hour. So the 2 powerful benefits of this is you get insanely productive for those 3 days when you start documenting, because you want to look really good on paper.
Oh, yeah. Even to yourself, you got to
even to yourself every day, right? And then what's great is you're going to see all the things you're doing, and immediately what we'll run through is like, what is a 5, 10, $100 an hour task? And just to keep it simple, if it's on a computer and it's not on the phone with somebody, those are already low-level tasks. Look at how much of those you're doing, and you've just started creating your first job for an executive or personal virtual assistant already, because those are the time-saving activities. Like Brian, I love this question if you don't mind. So Brian, like if we ever came across something be really cool, we want to work together on, would you be open to it initially? Like, hey, would you want to hear more conversation on like some kind of opportunity together? The kicker is though, Brian, I'm going to need you to work with me for like 20 hours a week, and it's $5 an hour, no profit sharing, nothing. Are you down with that? $5 an hour?
I think I'm good. I think I'm a little too busy for that.
So then I ask these people that are solopreneurs, then why are you doing it for yourself in your own company if you won't do it for mine?
Yep.
You're doing it right now if you don't have an executive assistant who's performing these things. You're doing it right now just for your business instead of mine. Yep. So you're doing yourself a disservice. So absolutely time track for 3 days, man, and start identifying, and then bring on somebody part-time, reach out. I know Brian can help out with where to get on. I don't mind helping either, but like seriously, that's the first step, man.
Yeah. One of those things I love that analogy. That's great. So I didn't know where you were going with that. So that was fantastic. And stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, that's a lot of people have that mindset of like, oh, I don't have an extra $1,000 a month or $1,500 a month to bring in a virtual assistant. Of like the amount of productivity and the amount of stuff you can bring to your business that $1,000 can get off your plate is crazy. It's immense. And I've never really realized that until, because I'm a workaholic. I work all the time, and I do a lot of the $5 tasks, that shouldn't be and stuff like that. But it's one of those things of like, if I take those off my plate, now I have to focus on something else, and that is growing the business, making connections and things like that. And that's going to bring a lot more revenue and pay for that, virtual assistant or in-person assistant like 10 times over.
Dude, I want to hit on something that's really truth right there. And some people don't want to hear that truth. But a lot of times we're doing this low-level task because we're avoiding the really heavy, hard-hitting thing that we know we need to be doing, right?
Yep.
Whether it's like you're into like creating the marketing message, right, for putting out for your marketing, or picking up the sales and improving your sales process to closing more deals or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. While you're avoiding those, and you're like, oh no, but I got to clean up my list on here, and I gotta move this from here, and there's a new podio field I need to create because I heard this is cool. And it's like, that didn't help you get on the phone at all. You spent all day creating a system that nobody's using.
Right. Yep. No, very true. Very true. So one of the things that I want to get into is we're talking about systems and things like that. So basically you were in a position where, okay, you got out of your W-2 and got into full-time real estate. And now you're kind of in the position where like, How much time do you spend a week in your real estate business right now, Vance?
If I push it, maybe some weeks 10 hours. On average, it's 6.
Yeah.
6 hours a week in
So
my real estate business.
getting out of his W-2 to get into real estate full time, and now he's kind of working. He's like on Brett's schedule. He's like part time, like
Yeah.
doing this real estate stuff because he put these systems and everything in place and got the right people in and things. So and I know you're doing coaching and consulting right now, and it's all based on scaling by systems and things. So let's talk a little bit about like when people, and we've mentioned it multiple times already, but what is a system? Like what are you talking about? We're talking about what is a system?
Fantastic question. And I'm going to start off with what it's not only. Everybody thinks a system is this really awesome software where you can zap or automate the Podio things, right? Okay. So I want to stop with all this like tech stuff, right? And I'm a tech guy. So a system is 3 components that create a system, and I'll explain why. It's people, it's your programs or software, and the process. You can have a program all day that's amazing, but if you have nobody working it, then it's useless.
Yep.
All right, you can have an amazing program with all these like cool clicky features, and then a person who's working in there, but if they don't have a process on how they're supposed to do it, they're not operating it effectively, nor are they using it, and you're missing out on the system. So to me, the system is the 3 triangles brought together. It's your process with people leveraging the tools or the programs. Okay, that is your system. That is as simple as I like to keep it. And your program can be an Excel spreadsheet on how you use it and who's using it. That is a system, an inefficient one, but a system nonetheless. Okay. That's how I start off with it. So that's to me as simple as I like to keep it.
Great definition right there. And it's so important. Putting those 3 things together, that's how you're going to be able to operate at, on full level, on high, and be able to get out of, and we talk about getting out of these, mundane tasks or the day-to-day tasks and stuff like that, and putting those systems in place so your team can be successful. So what are some of the keys that as you brought on systems and you've formulated systems and enhanced systems and broke systems and then had to rebuild like what are some of the tips, or what are some of the key points that you really like to put out there to, hey, if you're an entrepreneur, here's some things that you could really do, or some things that might help you out?
Yeah, so I'll start off with systems, and let me get on the tech side real fast. This is so easy. Your systems consist of like 3 stages is what I call it, for the software of your system. Okay, you have the notepad or envelope, non-tech, old traditional way of, I'm writing on a notepad, I'm putting in this like old filing cabinet with months and days, and I'm going to pull those out and follow up with the leads. Old school. It's a system still, just dated. Your next level is Google Sheets or Excel. You're putting it and you're using cool formulas. Great. Then your third level of a system is anything that's like a CRM or lead conversion system. Those are going to be your Podio base, your Salesforce, right? Your Investor, Fuse, whatever you have, right? Doesn't matter. But what I see people do all the time is if they're using one tool and they hear about this new cool sexy and they're moving over to it, and they're using like tech to solve a non-tech problem, right? I'll tell you this much. If you're using any of these top competitive tools and you're still under 7 figures, of the 3 pieces, you either need to look at your people or your processes, because it's not your system, right? I can't tell you, I don't care if you're using a Podio based or not, right? It doesn't matter until you get to 7 figures. Then the tech can really tweak and give you the edge. I can tell you that firsthand. So stop using tech to solve a tech problem. And when it comes to systems, I like to flip it upside down. When you determine if you're going to do it, first eliminate it. Ask if it needs to be done. Everybody's heard this. Eliminate. You might have even heard automate, delegate, etc. But flip it around. This is a big tip here. Eliminate first. Don't do it. Delegate second. Don't automate. Everybody becomes Zapier engineers in the end. I don't get the deal with that. Delegate first, because through the delegation, your people will articulate or will clean up the process. Because when you automate junk, you're just stacking junk on junk on junk, and then you need to like full-time be a Zapier guy because nobody knows what you're doing inside your own account. But when you use somebody and they got to follow the process, they're going to find the quirks instead of you automating, inefficiency, and then you automate that after they've ran through it. So I love to delegate, especially to assistants, work it out, because they're going to keep it to the simplest level. Why am I doing this? How is this doing it? And they're going to break it. Then I get it real simple. Then I automate.
Yeah. Well, the thing of it is too, they're the people that are actually doing it. Like I can't tell how many times like I've got into, even if it's a spreadsheet or into Podio or Left Main or Salesforce, or where I get in there and I've maybe I'm not doing that job on a day-to-day basis. I'm like, hey, here's how I want it to work, and here's what I would do. Well, I break stuff all the time anyway. I think on a high level and stuff. But when you get the people, like you said, get the people that are actually doing it, get them to create it, get them to do it. Number one, they'll do it in a simple way, that it's an efficient way and things like that. can you tweak it? Can you, can you figure out some things, ask some questions? Yes, 100%. But get the people that are doing it to actually put those in place and create that process along with you. So I think it's one of the things of like, I know you've been through the whole, sharper process and all that stuff. And I've, as I'm doing other teams, I see so many times if I'll sit down with a leader and we'll go through their process map. Like, oh, we're having trouble with acquisitions. Well, let's look at your process map. Okay, who all like did your acquisitions person, like, were they involved in this? And they're like, oh no, I just sat down and I did the process on my own. And like, and it's one of those things of like that you're thinking too high level. You don't know what's happening on a day-to-day or like case by case basis and stuff. So that's a great point that you're putting out there, man.
Dude, yeah, you just that was funny. You just nailed it on the head. I agree. One of the things that you're tying into when I heard about the process mapping, right, is they're like, I want to automate my follow-up sequence. I'm like, great. All right, so what's your sequence of follow-up now? I just want to automate it. I'm like, what's your sequence? Well, I don't know what is out there. I want to automate. I heard it's cool. Like I joke with this, but it's true. People are like, I want to automate.
How many times are you calling? Are you doing a voicemail? Are you doing a text? Like, are you doing a double dial, triple dial? Like all these things, like you have to do it first and then figure out
what works before you automate. And people technically have been delegating, then automating a lot of times already. But hand it off to that person who's actually going to do the work instead of guessing what you think it is and what, I'm with you.
So, no, cool. So one of the other things I want to talk to you about is because, so we're alike on this. And so your wife is running your business right now, basically too. She's your operations person. She's in the weeds. She's cleaning up all your messes and things like that. So I'm in the exact same boat. So my wife and I even just working all week and I'm like, oh, Brian, why do you do this? What's going on here? Like, no, leave this alone. Like, stop touching this, like all those kind of things. We're in that kind of boat. One of the things I wanted to ask you with that is, did your wife have any real estate experience coming into the
business? No, she didn't have. So funny thing, she actually she got her license in 2008 for 3 to 6 months. As you can imagine, that was the best time to get your license, right? Realized that it wasn't working out, and then we never looked at real estate since with her, right? And it wasn't until this business where then she came in to do the real estate with us. So no, her background was not in real estate. She did not have all that time, but I do give that caveat that she did go get her license in 2008 and then like dropped it after 6 months doing, nobody was selling, right?
Which we already know now. Even if you have a license, like all the stuff you take to the class, you're never actually going to use, and that's nothing to do with what you're going to be doing or anything. Yeah. So and I throw that out there because same thing, my wife has nothing, she knew nothing about real estate, didn't have a background in that things. But when it comes to, we're talking about a couple of things here of like hiring the right people and bringing the right people in and have a system and things like that. Like I didn't bring my wife onto my team to do real estate. I brought her on my team to handle the operations of the business and help run it efficiently. And she does an amazing job at that. And I think your wife you guys are in the same boat.
Yeah. So what worked really well for us with that is like 100% we're in the same boat. She runs it. And the key is we have identified the roles and we don't cross those roles, right? Yeah. I let her run these things. Like I don't, when I do get in the middle of it, I just mess it up anyway, because she's got to finely tune running machine that she's running, right? And the kicker is that we do these, weekly meetings, the leadership meetings or level 10s, or if you're familiar with traction. And that's where my 2 hours, like of the 6 to 10 hours I work a week, 2 to 3 hours is all I really need. 2 hours for that meeting up to, and then like an hour for anything like, working on our, that's a big issue that we created another meeting for. But that right there is the most important one, because the numbers really run the business. She's to make sure that the business is running within those numbers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely 100%. So I do have a question for you with that though, is because I do have people ask me this quite often. So I want to get your take on this too, of like, man, I don't know if I could ever work with my wife, or I don't know if we could work together and things. Yeah. I agree that 100%, like some people just should not work together and anything like that. It's been amazing in my business and I love it. And I feel like we have a lot of stuff to talk about, and we talk about real estate too much and the business too much and things. But what's some advice for you have for somebody that maybe their spouses, they are working together, or any advice on that?
Yeah, I got 2 big pieces. One, if you're working with your spouse and it's working out well, that tells you can work with anybody. Because your biggest supporter and critic will be your spouse. They're going to know every little flaw about you that you may not, that somebody else may not, and they know the right buttons to push, and the right buttons to push are there. And if you're able to work together, that means you're not leveraging that, you're not doing that, right? So that's a few tips. Second tip I've seen, and I've actually seen this hurt, right? People will see us doing this, and I'll see another really motivated entrepreneur, and then they're trying to force their spouse into this, right? So number one, and you have to ask this, and I'd love to ask you, Brian, and get your take. Is this something that your spouse wanted to do, first? Was she open to this, or was it like, hey, you're going to do this, this is how this is going to be, right? And just kind of force them into the field. Did she have an interest in it, and did it align with what she's already, her experience level, like whether it's managing, being in management, etc. I want to ask that question, but two, I'll tell you from the experience, you cannot force somebody if they have no desire to be in real estate and no desire to be in a leadership position or management position to force them into one, because that just will not work out.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing of hiring anybody. Like, you need to make sure that, number one, they're interested and have a little bit of a passion for it and stuff like that. But then also too, that the role fits them. If I brought my wife into our business and had her do sales, like, she'd be miserable. Like, it'd be terrible and stuff. But with that, I do have a story with that that I'll share. So it started, I sat down with Gary and Susan Harper about, it was about 2 summers ago, and we did our accountability chart and, put it up there, and we color coded it and all that stuff. And out of our business, it found out, like, through the color coding, basically I was responsible for like 67% of our business, like way too much. Like, I'm going to drop the ball, I'm going to mess up. And they were basically like, hey, you have to hire an assistant. So it came on and went home, and my wife comes from the HR world. She's been in HR forever, like super talented, has a lot of business background. So I always, whenever I hire somebody new, I always get like, hey, can you help me write a job description? Can you help me put it out there and all this stuff and make sure it's all legal and all that type of thing? And I was like, hey, can you help me write a job description for an assistant for myself? And her first response was like, well, you're not going to hire some pretty young thing to be your assistant. That's like her concern. So anyway, so she was on sabbatical from her job and things, and she was actually just getting ready to apply. This was like when COVID was going on things. So I was like, she came on as my assistant. Like, within a month, I gave her a promotion, and then like a couple months later, it was very evident that she could really improve the inefficiencies within our business and handle the operations and have that business background to clean up a lot of stuff. So for her, it just fit in with what we needed. And since that, like, we've been off and running and things. So yeah.
That is awesome to hear. I love that story right there. That's great. That's good. I love it.
Yeah. So, all right. So with, we'll wrap up here real quick and stuff, but I want to give you a chance to talk about what you're doing now and helping other, entrepreneurs, other business owners when they want to get to, hey, if you want to go from here to this next level, or, hey, I kind of want to get out. I want to quit messing up my business. I need to have an offer. Like, what are you doing, and what are you helping out with these entrepreneurs with?
Absolutely. So if they have like inconsistency with deals, roller coaster, right? Or they've done a couple of deals, but they don't know how to grow that and scale that. Like, I help people get to that like 6 to 7 figure mark, right? And if there's some people that are at like just a couple 100,000, a couple 6 figures, and they're tapped for capacity and are solopreneur, that's again where I can come in and help them build out the right team in the system and make sure the business funds itself while growing revenue and removing them out of their day-to-day, right? I mean, that's the focus point. So if you find that you're over here doing 40 to 60 hours a week and you're in this roller coaster effect, that's exactly who I work with and help target. And we really, truly try to help them scale their business.
Awesome, man. I love it. And I appreciate your heart so much, and just your passion and your energy and your heart behind everything you do. And man, you're such an incredible man. So I want to give you a chance to, if somebody wants to reach out to you, hit you up with more about what you're doing, learn more about what you're doing, where can they go?
Yeah, the best place will probably be right on Facebook, Vance Courtney. And if you just want to see more, I have the group called Scale by Systems. Go check out the Facebook group there as well. We're going to be posting content to kind of help people get through those first few phases. And then again, just message me directly on Facebook, or you can reach out admin@scalebysystems.com. Again, we have a system around that. So that email, my team will help take care of that whole process, right? But yeah, if you want any direct questions or anything, please reach out. And I do want to put a comment out there, talk to your local people as well. Like, Brian's out here, he's doing some great things. So reach out to people that are local that know this industry. There's a lot of go-givers out there.
Yeah. Awesome, man. That's a great tip right there. I really appreciate that. And actually, I do have one more question. Sorry, I got one more question before we get out here. So I want to know, because you are way better at this than me, and I really appreciate this about you. And I was like, man, I wish I could be more like Vance when it comes to this. But man, you are just like, you have the ability to put yourself out there when you're talking to people and say like, hey, go ask Brian or go talk to this. And like, I feel like if you talk to anybody in real estate, like, they know Vance because he's asked them a question or he's talked to him or just gave him a shout out in some way. Like, how are you connected with so many people, and like, how are you able to, have you always been like that? I think of you as like a tech guy, like systems guy, like you're not supposed to be social, Vance. So how are you able to do this?
It is a unicorn move. I realize that. Well, the reason why we're doing the systems is because what I've done in the business was like build out a system, put a team into play, and then hand it off, right? Like I've done with building systems and stuff, right? But it was definitely a unicorn inside of the tech side. But more importantly, like, this is my calling, man. This is it. So real estate is not my passion. You'll never see that. It's the business is the new tech to solve, but I just love helping people. So real estate was always my thing to get to my thing, which is this right here.
Yeah.
And I'm just lucky to have been around a lot of go-giving people. And so I just feel like it's my duty to kind of keep serving, serving in his way, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? And like, I have really good mentors and guides along the way. So no, it's just, you keep on giving. And man, look, I'm going to tell you something, Ryan, right? I'm actually the most selfish person you're ever going to meet. And this is what I tell people, right? I'm not kidding about this. If helping people made me feel bad about myself, I would stop helping people.
Right. Yeah.
Right. It's because I feel good when I'm done. I'm like, oh man, that's my high. Give me another one. And I want some more of that. Right. And so getting people results, seeing them happy, seeing life change, that's what I'm fueled up for. That is my emotional paycheck I go into cash every day now.
So love it. That's so great. Love that you put it out there and stuff like that. And yeah, you do an incredible job with it. So thank you so much, Vance, for joining me on here. Really appreciate you. And thank you everybody for listening. And with that, we'll wrap up this episode and we'll see you guys next time on the Indy Investor Pod. Take care.